Across 4 decades, Reverend A.R. Bernard has become a force for change, developing the Christian Cultural Center into a church with worldwide influence and launching other powerful initiatives. As a best-selling author, teacher, and mentor at the intersection of faith and culture, his impact ranges across media, politics, and everyday life. Today, his most essential role is raising up the next generation of leaders.
This is the intersection of faith and culture, because I think that's the greatest challenge that the church is having right now, its relevance to what's happening within the society, and having the language to articulate its position without seeming to be antiquated or removed or irrelevant. So we're going to tackle a few subjects, and I appreciate you just jumping in, and any questions that you may have, let's bring it to the floor, all right? So 60% of college enrollment today is female, only 40% male. Women have experienced unprecedented wealth, education, and upward mobility, which means that there's an emerging female power class that we're dealing with, not just in America, but globally. There are more women who are heads of state around the world. There are more women CEOs in corporate America and globally. And the Me Too movement, which has emerged and expressed certain ideas about what exists within our society, is the voice of women. There are men involved as well, but primarily the voice of women, saying that we're not going to tolerate the social norms that have perpetuated exploitation of women, abuse of women. I don't think it means the end of men, but I think the end of male dominance in society. Women are no longer willing to accept men who are emotionally detached, neglectful, abusive, and they're empowered now, economically, intellectually, which has another problem, finding a husband for a woman like that. So, what do you think about the statistics and where we are?
I'm encouraged by the statistics, just given years past where women were seen and defined in certain roles. But even with this progression, I think there's still a deficit when it comes to equal pay for equal work. That's prevalent in various sectors. So I think that's still a ways to go, and I think males are still seen as the dominant within that realm. But overall, I think that it's a great thing for our society that women do now have a voice.
So you feel men and women should be equal?
Absolutely, absolutely.
All of you feel that
agree.
way? Yes.
Yes. I agree. I think that the statistics are great. I think that the direction that we're moving in is great, but in practice being in, at one point being in corporate America and seeing that I met a lot of women of color with degrees and, to go along with the statistics, like they're doing great things, but the positions that we had in those corporations didn't reflect the experience and the degrees that we carried. So with that, it's concerning to me because, yes, women, we're going for it, we're being educated, but especially women of color, are we really being respected in society now?
So you feel some of the changes are transactional?
Yes. I think when you're in it, in practice, it's different. It's absolutely different. And I have been told, I have, in the setting that I worked at before, and I have spoken out about things like this, and I've been told, man, we would love to see you spread your wings, which basically says if you go somewhere else, maybe you'll get what you're looking for, but this is just not the place.
Yeah, so it's not the norm, at least not yet, and it's not law, but things are happening, things are changing. Yeah. So you think you're in favor of what's happening with women?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Why?
Because it's a movement, and And it's about time. I mean, we've been next to the man from the beginning, helping. It's just that,
Wait.
you
Say
know,
that again. You've been subservient to men?
a bit. But yeah, you know, it's our time. We've gone through centuries and decades of the same thing. We deserve to be on an equal level. Just as our male partners should have responsibilities in the care of our children. Let the male be able to take time off to raise the children after the woman gives birth. Let it be equal on both sides for everything: pay, responsibilities for family, responsibilities for childcare. Let's bring childcare into the work environment.
But how does that affect the role? I mean, you all are Christians. So we're talking about a set of traditional values and roles that have been understood in terms of family, the husband, the wife, the male, the female. Now, it's one thing to talk about equal pay. It's another thing to talk about equality across the boards. Because if we're saying that men and women should be equal across the boards, then we're saying that men and women are the same. But they're not. They are uniquely different, correct? So how do you clarify that?
I think as Christians, we have to be very careful to use the term equality, equal across the board. I'm a strong believer that the Lord has made, the Lord made me as a woman for a reason. There are things that I can do that a man cannot do. There are things that a man can do that I cannot do because I was not created that way. When it comes to the workplace, I am one that believes in equality. A lot of times there are responsibilities in the workplace that I'm just naturally better at as a woman, and I've had a lot of male coworkers who have said, when it comes to something like administrative, like I can't do a spreadsheet to save my life, but they'll come to me and they say, I know that you can though, can you help me with this? If I'm putting in even more hours, if I'm really out there working and busting my behind to make sure that my work gets done and it gets done well, I deserve to be paid the same amount that my male coworker does. So when it comes to the workplace, give me my money. At the end of the day, if I'm working as equally or more than a man is, I feel there should be equality.
So equal pay for equal work.
Equal pay for equal work.
But you're making a distinction that a woman is uniquely a woman, a man is uniquely a man. And of course, we live in the age of gender dysphoria where people don't want to be who they were born to be. Mm-hmm. So they'll rethink that and want to reclassify themselves and even represent themselves physically in tune with the new vision that they have of themselves. So in the workplace, equal pay, I get that for equal work, equal qualifications, all of that. But how does that translate into the traditional relationship in the home? Or should it?
Well, I think to your point, I'm not against. I grew up in a home where, when my father was around, he stayed at home, and my mother was the breadwinner. And so my father cooked and cleaned and took care of us, when he was there. And, there was nothing wrong with that. My father didn't feel like less of a man. It's just the responsibility. It's what was needed in the household. I think with everything that has gone on about, gender dysphoria and just the times that we are in, it's made it a little bit more complicated as a Christian to even navigate that. Even in the workplace, you have to be careful because if you're working with someone who is currently transgender or going through the process, they rather not be called she, they rather be called he, or even things are they, or so it's a little difficult and it's touchy, and so it's just something that's become difficult. I don't have the answer to that to say this is how it's done or this is how it should be. I think the generation of today is all about equality for anyone across the board. And again, workplace, equal work, equal pay, I have no problem with that. But as a Christian, I find it difficult sometimes outside of that. Like, how do I navigate that? How do I, address this person when I have my own beliefs, when I think a different way? Mm-hmm. How do I continue to love them and honor them regardless of the decision that they've made?
Without compromising your Christian values and principles. which is a challenge. You guys, we got.
Actually, just to piggyback a little bit, dial it back, when it comes to the home, I subscribe to traditional values where I am the foundation, the head of household. And my wife is my partner. Because that's the values and norms that I grew up with. So that's what I subscribe to. So I think at home is a little bit different where, again, I am the leader of the household. So it's my wife, I still have the utmost respect and balance, but there are certain things as a man and as a leader of the home where that's my role.
That's your role.
That's my role.
Has your wife given you permission for that?
Actually,
I'll give him a minute to think about that.
it's been a little bit of tension.
He's answering the question. You're not supposed to answer that. Let me give you a hint. Leave it there.
I have to say, like, I don't play the traditional wife in my household. I don't like to clean. I don't like to wash dishes.
Okay.
And my husband and I are okay with that. That's our own agreement in our marriage. I'm better with finances and in financial making in our household, and he's better at other things. He's better at managing, managing the home or managing just certain chores and we're okay with that. Like, it doesn't challenge us, and we actually have to protect it because our family members are like, no, the husband should go out and work and make the bacon or come home with the bacon, right? So, but I was like, no, we both have master's degrees. We both want to work. We both want to delay a family right now, and that's okay with us. That's our agreement. That's our respect for each other.
Right.
So does it force you to have to make adjustments in your application of your Christian faith because of the influences of pop culture? Because this model would never have been accepted within a Christian context 40 years ago, 30 years ago, and definitely not 100 years ago. But it's acceptable now. I mean, it works between you and your husband because there is a respect, a mutual agreement in terms of what roles each one of you would play in the relationship. So as much as we try to say there's the world, the secular world, and there is our Christian world, we can't really make that bifurcation, can we? We can't make that separation as though we could live in each comfortably without each affecting the other. So pop culture is bleeding into our Christian home. Is that true?
Yes.
Yeah? Okay. So guys, I mean, the ladies are taking the lead here. We got one. You got to weigh in here. How do you feel about this emerging female power class?
Well, I feel like overall it's incredibly helpful. It's empowering. I think around the conversation, one thing that I would have a question for you about is what is the definition of the word equality? Because I think everybody uses that word, but they define it very differently. And if you are using the same word and you're defining it the same way, then we can have a conversation around that word. But if you're saying it and I'm saying it, but we mean two completely different things, then I think we're having a conversation that's doomed to failure, which I think a lot of the conversation around this.
Well, that's why the distinction is made between equal pay and equal roles, because we can have equality of rights and responsibility, but do we embrace equality of roles? Because once we begin to do that, are we now stripping each of our uniqueness? Because you're uniquely a woman, you're uniquely a man, right? And by God's design, purposely, intentionally, you were designed to respond to life differently based upon that unique design. So now we try to say, okay, we're equal, so we're going to try to equalize that distinction. We're going to have trouble because it's going to be diametrically opposed to nature, how you have been naturally designed. And I think society has a problem with that. We don't, because we can subscribe, I think, am I speaking for everybody here? We subscribe to a Judeo-Christian belief system when it comes to family and roles that are occupied and the distinction between men and women, all right? But let's get back to the rise of a female power class. What are the implications for men?
Well, I think that it's a good thing in general, just for bringing health into unhealthy roles, both in relationships at the home or in the workplace. Like a lot of the fact that these women are willing to speak out when before they weren't because of an imbalance in power with their boss or the Hollywood producer or whoever, a pastor, doing things that they shouldn't have, being abusive or manipulative, harassing them. Now that they can actually feel comfortable speaking out because of a few trailblazers in that regard, hopefully they can speak into the unhealthy dynamics in leadership in those areas. And a lot of that is, most of the Me Too movement is kind of more centered around like the workplace or, where we're at with our jobs. But I think it can also, hopefully speak into unhealthy relationships at home or unhealthy power dynamics at home or in our church
Churches,
families, in our communities. So I think that it's a good thing to be able to bring this to the light and to talk about it in ways that people didn't feel comfortable talking about it before because they might be marginalized if they bring something like that up.
So you're not intimidated by an emerging female power class?
No, I think it's a good thing. I think it's a good thing to bring that up, and I think that I think there is a way for equality, not just in terms of pay or title, but in terms of power and agency. I think that's a good thing. Just because you have equal rights and agency doesn't mean that you're going to do the exact same. Like it doesn't mean that you're not any less or more of a man or any less or more of a woman. I think it could hopefully enable and empower people to thrive even more, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
I
no,
think
that makes
equality
sense.
of agency, doesn't mean that everything's going to be equal in terms of how you use that agency.
So if your wife made more money than you're okay with that? If she made 3 times what your salary is, are you okay with that? You're not intimidated by that? She will see this video.
Absolutely. I'll be intimidated by it because just again, I subscribe to these traditional norms, and then this sense of competition because then I feel as though I'm not fulfilling my obligation.
Just because she's making more than you? But how does that affect you as head of household?
It affects me as head of household. I think psychologically, it puts me at a certain place because I'm supposed to be the breadwinner. I'm supposed to be, because I am head of household.
She's just bringing in more bread.
Is that, well, and it's been great gifts. I mean, I respect great gifts at the end of the year.
Oh, so
but
you'll take her salary. It's okay.
It is.
But it's still going to intimidate you.
It still would intimidate me, absolutely.
Yes.
It's because of the traditions.
But I also think that could be a deeper
But that's
issue,
a-
just individually too.
But that tradition has affected your thinking, though, right? I mean, because if she's making more than you, how does that upset your position as head of household? Is it because that money now translates into power?
Absolutely, because that's what I'm thinking of, right? Because then I'm losing my position at home.
So you feel that you lose your power if she's making more money than you.
Absolutely.
Is that legitimate?
For us as women, do we feel that because we are powerhouses or because we are making more money, does that give us now the right to have all the say in the household? I think it can go both ways.
So a lot of that it depends on your wife, right? How she handles that power. But I appreciate your honesty because it could be intimidating. How will she now frame the relationship? How will she look at you as a man? Does that translate into a degree of impotency, economic impotency? All right. Well, look, I appreciate the conversation so far. We're going to take a break, and we'll be back.